Tonight's show is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon, Daddy Optics, and you, our listeners. You can hike up onto the very top, and from the top, you can see, oh gosh, what all was it that you could see? You could see Oklahoma, Colorado, New Mexico, which you're in, and Texas. And I think on a clear day, they said New Jersey. Maybe. What is up, all of you wayward souls, and welcome back to the Wayward Stories podcast. Wayward Stories is the podcast where we tell the tales of our adventures and our wanderings and our wonderings. And interestingly enough, tonight, we're going to go back in time once again to tell a story of wandering. But we're going to go back in time for a really good one. And we're going back for a really great reason. So I hope all you guys who have all listened to the entire back catalog and are a little bit disappointed because you're not getting any new content tonight, which I understand and I do feel bad about. Hold on a second and let me tell you why. We're going to just have a short opening here, and then I'm going to turn you loose to the ethers of podcasts past and just let the whole episode play from beginning to end. But the reason we're doing this is because this coming weekend, which would be the weekend that I would have the time to record the fresh episode. This is, 6? Yeah, so this is June 6th. Okay, listen, I just have to think about these things sometimes. There's too much in my brain. This coming weekend, I'm going to be doing something that I never thought in my entire life I would be able to say I was going to do. And I'm giddy about it, and it is the kind of opportunity that you cannot pass up. I am going to do archaeology. Now, to many of you, you may say, literally, you've waited your whole life to say that? Yes, I have. It is a dream come true for me. All my entire life, from a tiny child, I always thought it would be amazing to be an archaeologist. Life had other plans. And if, I don't know, if I'd had a high school guidance counselor that gave a crap or a little bit more parental discipline, and I'm not blaming all those people. However, as an adult now with a child, I understand that we are children for a very long time and we need help getting through it all. But regardless, for many, many plethora of reasons, this didn't happen for me. And I always just thought, it's like thing in the back of your mind. It's like regrets, one of those big regrets. Never going to get to do that, but God, would that not be so cool? Well, this weekend, I am going to do exactly that. And I'm going to tell you that, and I'm going to talk for just a second about that for a reason here in this little new cold open for this older show that we're going to play tonight in order to get a podcast out on time, on schedule, keep everything on schedule, and give you something to listen to, because honestly, the vast, vast majority of you are all newer listeners and have not listened to the back catalog. I can see all that in my analytics. Believe it or not, the analytics are kind of creepy. I know what some of you guys had for breakfast. Think about that. Anyway, I'm just kidding. Seriously, chill out. I'm just kidding. But the reason I'm telling you this, number one, is to explain why we're putting out a classic once again. But the other reason is I just want to point this out. This whole podcast has become like a journal of my life. It's what it was meant to be, to share as much of me as I feel reasonably comfortable sharing, to try to be somewhat of an impetus, a proof of concept. I hate to say inspiration because I think I give myself too much credit, but a proof of concept to some of you that life can exist beyond horrid traumas and early childhood traumas and things that set us back for our entire lives. They can be overcome with effort, right? And you can become a better person. And that's been my goal all along. And I wanted to do this podcast to A, just tell my story, but B, try to be something of an inspiration to people to get out and live, which it has worked that way. And I'm so excited about all the emails that I get to that end. And I love all you guys. Thank you for sending me those, because they help me have the motivation to continue on with this sometimes, because it's accomplishing the goal I set out to do. But either way, that is the point. And so things like I'm about to go do tonight are one more step in that progress of me moving forward and actually achieving things that I could have never imagined achieving before the big trauma happened that set me on this path some 5 years ago, a little over 5 years ago. And this is just a huge moment for me. And I'm just kind of throwing it out there. It's like, guys, listen, no matter how impossible it may seem, to get to where you think you'd like to go and erase some of those regrets you think you'd never have a chance to regret or to erase, I'm just here to tell you that you can. And all it takes is taking a step in that direction, getting your butt off the couch, and actually taking the initiative to go try. I'm not arriving at getting to go do archaeology in the way I ever would have imagined I would, and I'm not going to get to do it for a living, most likely, for a living. But it is within the umbrella of what I am going to do for a living, and archaeology can now become a very real part of my life and something that I've always wanted to do, and I cannot wait to be a part of. And like the only reason those doors open was because I set out from ground zero, from the bottom of the bucket, and said, listen, there's only two ways to go. I can stay here or I can go up, or I can go sideways. I don't like staying here. I don't like going sideways. We got to try to go up. There's nothing to lose, right? And I went for it. And here we are with things happening that are just absolutely the most awesome thing ever. So anyway, I just wanted to share that as maybe something of an inspiration for some of you guys. Things start to happen when you start to act, and it underscores everything that I try to do with this podcast. Encourage you to take your life back. That's what I've been trying to do. It hasn't always been, it's not easy now. It's never been easy. It's hard as hell, but it's worth the effort. And things do start to happen, even if it takes a while. It's worth the effort. So get off your butts and go out there and chase whatever it is you love to chase. Anyway, I want to thank all of you for your understanding that we're putting out an old episode tonight. It's just a real small, dedicated group of you that have actually going to have heard this before. To all of you, because you are true blue listeners and you support me so dearly, I do apologize. But I also know you would be the ones that appreciate why I'm doing this and why I need to do this. So thank you for understanding. For the rest of you, enjoy. This is actually a really good episode. I listened to it today while I was at work, the old file, and I was like, yo, this is one of the best early episodes I actually did. I don't like to listen to old episodes. I've told y'all that. This is one of the best ones. This one's actually really interesting. And like, I was kind of getting a little bit of a flow going. Like, this is a pretty darn good episode. And it's super interesting about exploring central Colorado. So I hope that you will all strap on your seatbelts. Because like, Dr. Dre said, sit back, relax, and strap on your seatbelt. Because through the magic of podcast editing, you're about to step into the DeLorean and take a trip back in time and listen to me from 2 years ago. But it's actually a pretty darn solid episode that I'm not ashamed to put back out there. I hope you guys enjoy it. Thank you for your understanding. Other than that, thank you guys, and we will catch you in a couple of weeks when I don't know what we're going to talk about yet, but I will definitely have an update for you and let you know if I have managed to get through this coming weekend without breaking the entire discipline of archaeology. Anyway, you guys enjoy. Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Wayward Stories podcast, the podcast where we tell your stories of adventures in self-discovery. Tonight, I have got a good one for you guys. Tonight, I'm really looking forward to tonight's episode and tonight's story. But first and foremost, how are you guys? How's your week been? Mine has been chaotic, doing this grown-up thing, parenting / full-time work schedule. It's become exhausting. I just drug myself in from yet another soccer practice after yet another long day. I at least changed shirts for you guys who are watching on YouTube. Anyway, let's talk about what we're going to talk about tonight. Tonight, I'm excited about tonight's episode because A, it was one of my favorite trips I've ever taken, and B, I'm going to get to give you guys an idea of how I go on an adventure. This is a Justin style adventure. The trip we're going to talk about is my big trip from last year. I take multiple trips throughout the year on off weekends when I have the opportunity, little 2-day trips, 2.5-day trips. But for the first time in my adult life, I got, vacation time. I finally got a job where I earned vacation. And so for the last 3 years, I've taken actual week-long vacations and tried to take as long as I could afford during that week of vacation, as many days as I could afford, trip somewhere I've always wanted to see or something to do. And I got this short list, and a long list of just different ideas. Last year's trip, I went to central Colorado around Buena Vista, but not for all the reasons everybody else goes. I didn't go to, hit the ski slopes. I didn't go to elk hunt or, mule deer hunt or any of the things that, Colorado's typically known for, at least here in the southern United States. That's what everybody goes for, either to ski or to kill something. That's what everyone goes to Colorado for. What I wanted to go for is, like, I have this, I've mentioned, if you watch my YouTube videos, I've mentioned a billion times how big of a nerd I am when it comes to history. I've mentioned it a couple of times here on the podcast. I love history, especially, like, I love all history, but I really love, like, Industrial Revolution forward, because there's something about that. Like, that stuff, most of it is, it's still extant somewhere. You can find a lot of the old infrastructure and the things that built the life we live today that started in the 1850s, 60s, 70s, 80s. You can find a lot of that still around today. And there's something about that tangible link to the past. And I don't know why. That's what's magical about it to me. And I've always loved railroads. I've always loved, like, abandoned mines. Colorado has more than its fair share of abandoned mines, so that had been on my short list for a long time. I wonder if I could find a really awesome abandoned mining town in Colorado. And as I started to do my research and started trying to put together my ideas for what trip I might take last year, I discovered there are a lot of abandoned mining towns and a lot of relics of the past in the central Colorado area. And as my research went on and the area refined, I figured out, okay, I'm going to have to stay somewhere around Buena Vista. The locals there, believe it or not, at least a certain portion of them call it Buena Vista. And that's actually even in documentation from the early days of the town. It was almost taken on as a pronunciation. And that is just an absolute travesty. That is an affront to the Spanish language. And I refuse to call it Buena Vista. I don't even care if it's like some kind of a ancient city ordinance that it has to be called that. I'm not going to do it because it's just, like I said, it's a travesty. It's an affront to the Spanish language. But Buena Vista, Colorado, very centrally located to a lot of abandoned mining infrastructure, several abandoned mining towns. And that's kind of how I planned that trip was, you know what? Let's plan a few days in Buena Vista, Colorado, and see what we can get into. And that kind of gives you an idea, like, that's a good segue into talking about how I like to plan trips. I like my adventures to be somewhat adventurous. Though I am quite OCD in life, if you came in here into my studio or into my apartment and looked around, like, I'm kind of a neat freak. I don't do clutter. I'm a simple dude. I only keep what I need for what I need it. Like, it's just how I like to live my life. Gives me more brain space. And keeps what little fried and scrambled brain space I have a little bit more on track. Kind of declutters my mind as well. But when it comes to going on adventures, I'm not planning out the whole trip. I'm not going to have an itinerary that's got point for point for point. What I'm going to have, and this trip is a perfect example of it, was, okay, I took my vacation in two halves last year. One half I spent, I feel like it was a good expenditure of 2 of my days for my technical rope certification, rope rescue responder, level 1. To go into a long weekend. But the other half I took, and it was this Colorado trip. So I had essentially, what did I have? I would have had all of Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then Sunday would have been a drive day home. And it would have given me, that's correct, Tuesday night. See, like, you don't want to waste those hours after work, right? Tuesday night, those are good hours, especially if you're going west from where I live. You can get most of the boring drive through western Oklahoma and the panhandle of Texas out of the way after dark, after work, on, the day you get off and get ready to leave. It all just takes a little bit of planning. And it'll get you the maximum amount of time wherever it is that you're going. You got to use all those hours, guys. We don't have that many hours in our life to spend. We don't know how many it is. So as long as you're breathing, the moment is now. Make the most of every minute, especially when it's fun minutes that aren't spent at work in misery. So I planned it out where, okay, I'm going to take off. I'm going to get to Buena Vista as quick as possible. And I've got 4 major things I want to hit. As I did my research, I came across some major names of things I wanted to check out. Number 1, St. Elmo, Colorado, which is known to be the best preserved ghost town in Colorado and possibly the United States, which I think that probably belongs to Bodie. But it's a very well preserved ghost town. Awesome place. It's also right on the Arkansas River, near the headwaters of the Arkansas River, which here in Arkansas and eastern Oklahoma, the Arkansas River is big, broad, and ugly. Like it's mud soup for the soul. And in Colorado, though, it's like the kind of rivers I love here in Arkansas. Mountain rivers, whitewater, trout fishing, smallmouth. It's a beautiful river. So that's going to be high on my list. So that's like two things in the corner of this area of Colorado. It's also really close to some dark sky areas, dark sky park stuff, which we talked about in the Buffalo National River Overnight episode. So that, possibility. There's a couple of other ghost town type areas and abandoned mining type areas out through there. So I was like, okay, this is a great idea. All right, so I'm going to have this many days there. Each day I'm going to pick something, like here's 2 or 3 major things that I want to check out. I'm going to work them into this trip, but the rest of the time, whatever happens, happens. Let's go see. You never know. You can only look and find so much online, but when you get to an area, suddenly you start seeing and realizing, hearing about, seeing signs on the road for things that you didn't recognize, didn't catch, were in the area. So I like to set out a time frame. All I have is definite start and end points and 2 or 3 things I want to check out in that allotted time frame. Everything else is up to the fates. Let's go see what happens. And that's exactly how this trip played out. Once we got there, checked everything out. I didn't even get there and I found something awesome. On the second day of the drive in the morning, coming through northern New Mexico, heading towards the southern Colorado border, driving up on this mountain was not a mountain, a very, very large hill was starting to just stand out on the horizon. And I was like, that looks so much like a volcano. That just really looks like a volcano. And then suddenly I see a sign that's like Capulin Volcano National Monument. And I was like, well, I guess that is a volcano. And so, yeah, National Monument, pulled over. We went up, my travel buddy, that trip and we went and hiked up on Capulin Volcano. I'm just saying, that was really cool. That was one of those things that did not plan for, was completely unexpected. And bam, here's a giant ancient volcano, which it turns out is at least at one time, was claimed to be the best preserved example of a dormant cinder cone volcano in North America. It is the stereotypical cinder cone volcano. And yeah, it's dormant. It's extinct. It's not dormant. It's extinct. It is an awesome little thing though. You can hike up onto the very top, and from the top you can see, oh gosh, what all was it that you could see? You could see Oklahoma, Colorado, New Mexico, which you're in, and Texas. And I think on a clear day, they said New Jersey. Maybe. I might be wrong about Jersey. But anyway, it had a great view of the surrounding landscape. You can see the lava flows down at the bottom. When you're at the top of the volcano, you can hike down into the mouth of the volcano and see all these ancient lava flows. And it's just a great example of $20 well spent that you didn't expect to spend, that you didn't expect to spend that time. But bam, there it is. And it was really, really cool. I am totally glad that I did that. And it's the kind of thing you need to keep your eye open for, and why I like to schedule drive time, when I'm leaving and when I'm coming back, but anything in between, go with the flow. Because stuff like that pops up, and it's stuff that you'll probably never come across again, something like that. So live in the moment. Do it while it's there to do. Capulin Volcano, northern New Mexico. Check it out if you're ever in the area. But we're going up, get to Buena Vista. Buena Vista is, okay, there are 2 major gold rushes in American history, 2 major ones. And one was the one in California in 1849, which was where the 49ers came from. And then there was a second one, which was in the Colorado area. I think it's Cripple Creek is where originally started, something to that effect. I could be wrong on that. Don't quote me. But it was around 1859, hence 59ers. There's like two major groups, the 49ers and the 59ers. 59ers came from this area of Colorado, the Pikes Peak region. I think it was Cripple Creek. Pikes Peak's not far from Buena Vista, just to the west, or east rather. It's nestled between a whole crap ton of 14,000 foot mountains. Colorado has a plethora of what they call in Colorado 14ers. I got it pulled up right here in front of me. What is it? Colorado has 58 mountain peaks exceeding 14,000 feet, the most of any state. Outdoor enthusiasts of all skill levels will find peaks ranging from easy to very difficult, with hiking trails for exploring the state's scenery, wildlife, and rugged beauty. It's nestled amongst several 14ers. They basically surround the valley that Buena Vista sits within. And we stayed at this little, kind of an Airbnb, but it was a hotel. But I think it was the B&B Riverside Inn, which, shout out to them. If you ever go to Buena Vista, check them out, because that was a nice, quaint little place to stay for a few days. The lady that was over it all was super awesome, super friendly, super helpful, super accommodating, for some crazy ass adventurers who were just out there kicking it and, coming in late, leaving early, and all that good stuff. She was awesome. It was reasonable. And let me just say, like, hot tub and the little back area of this thing and your own little private section in the cold, frigid Colorado nights in late October, like, that was pretty killer. I'm just saying. You should check them out. Right by the river. You can walk down to the Arkansas River from the parking lot of the B&B Riverside Motel in Buena Vista, Colorado. But as we got there, got checked in late, she came over, got us in, and I'm grabbing all these brochures. Like, that's one of the keys to my plans, is you get all the travel brochures. They're going to be everywhere. And I grabbed all the good ones, all the ones that looked interesting. And then I sat there that night, and that's how we unwound, is I just went through the brochures and kind of shortlisted stuff. Threw stuff to the side that, like, that costs too much, or that's too far away, that's not going to happen. But hey, look at these things. These things are kind of close. This is affordable. This is a day thing. This is a whatever. And you start narrowing it down, and we came up with, like, basically 3 full days of adventures. And I still left stuff on the table, and I intend to go back. That's how much there is to do in Buena Vista, Colorado. We went chucks to the wall for 3 solid days and still left stuff on the table that I want to go back and do. That's how much there is to do there. If you're out there for the kinds of things I'm there for, which is experiencing nature, experiencing historical stuff, gosh, there's so much going on there. So I'm just going to go through. I'm not going to go through how I figured out what I was going to do, but I'm just going to go through what we ended up doing here. I believe the very first thing that we did do was go and check out St. Elmo, which St. Elmo is, again, the best preserved ghost town in Colorado and one of the best in the entire United States. There are 43 buildings left, and this is all from the 1880s time frame. There are 43 buildings left. It is not a true, quote, ghost town, end quote. There are a handful of residents that still live there that keep some things going, like they do have during the summer months. They're open during the summer, a little general store. We missed the general store, unfortunately, because we were there in late October. It was like after the major summer season stuff and before the ski season started, which was kind of a great time to be there because there weren't a whole lot of tourists and we had a lot of stuff really all to ourselves. But also, you miss out on some things like this little general store, which I'm given to understand is a really, really cool place, simply because they weren't open, because it was in the off season. There's also a B&B, a bed and breakfast that is operated within St. Elmo. Didn't even know that. Figured it out while we were there. Didn't even know that. I would have considered staying there, but it's got some really awesome buildings left over from the 1880s in really, really good shape. Really well preserved. Some of them are just pristine for being as old as they are. A lot of really cool, amazing history there. If you have an OHV, if you've got an off-highway vehicle, or if you say rent a Jeep, which is a thing you can do up there, which is something I left on the table, but intend to go back and possibly do. I mean, to be honest, my Xterra, I love my Xterra. Like, I got a Pro 4X, love my Xterra. But from what I could understand, there were some ground clearance situations that my ex probably just couldn't do. So I'm thinking I may go back and rent a Jeep one of these days, because things you can do from St. Elmo. If you go on up the trail, the road from St. Elmo, there are many abandoned mines that you can explore if you have a capable enough four-wheel drive, OHV. You can also go up over Tin Cup Pass, which is a historic and a famous pass in the essence of the move westward and the gold rush and the silver rush and westward expansion and all that. That's something. Yeah, I'm going back, guys. Anyone want to go with me? Like, holler at me, hit me up. Like, we'll work out a cool trip. I'm going back because there's so much. Like, it's like the true spirit of adventure in a way. Like, I mean, I'm not out there. We're not doing Lewis and Clark stuff, right? Like, nobody really gets to do that anymore. Like, everything's kind of been explored except for the depths of the ocean. It's the last great frontier that we have. But like, you're struggling to find really inaccessible and lightly visited places anymore anywhere. Which honestly is kind of an argument to the importance of protecting a lot of the places we have, like the Yosemites and the Yellowstones and other things of that nature. But like, in the sense of just going on an adventure somewhere you've never been, seeing things that few people venture to go and try to find, that's possible here. And I want to go back for an adventure like that. I want to take a Jeep up over Tin Cup Pass. I want to explore some of the mines, the abandoned infrastructure and abandoned mines around St. Elmo that weren't really accessible to me and what I was driving at the time. But that's all something you can do. St. Elmo, super cool place. You can get some absolutely killer photography down in that valley. You catch it just right, catch the aspens when all the leaves are turning. We had pockets left. Third week of October was a little bit too late. But we did find pockets where it is stunning. It is breathtaking and a little bit otherworldly when you drive into an area and all you see is these giant, almost perfectly straight, white barked trees. The white bark is such a stark contrast to the rest of nature around it, kind of standing up in this forest like matchsticks, but around like these beautiful bright yellow and orange leaves, mostly yellow. That's mostly the color palette we're in here, is bright yellow. And it is absolutely stunning and somewhat otherworldly. You feel like you're driving through a movie set or a fantasy novel that you read sometime. It is absolutely beautiful. And there's a lot of that going down to St. Elmo on the road that you take in from the main highway. St. Elmo itself is a pretty interesting little adventure. Like, St. Elmo is something to be checked out. I have a video on my YouTube channel. Go check out the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Wayward Stories. And you can see an idea of what's going on in St. Elmo. Another adventure we got into. This one's interesting. One of the 14,000 plus foot mountains is Mount Sherman. It comes in at 14,035 feet. Not far from where we stayed, about an hour up the road. It's real close to Leadville. We're going to talk about Leadville next. But going up Mount Sherman, there is several abandoned mines. You have like the Peerless Mine, which is somewhere down around 11,000 feet. It's right at the tree line area. You go on up, and there's another one, it's the Dauntless Mine at 12,198 feet. And then there's another mine up from that at 12,959 feet, which is the Hilltop Mine. What was on my agenda for that day was the Hilltop Mine. Like, I'm going up here and I'm going up to this Hilltop Mine. And if I make it to 13K, the Hilltop Mine, why not going up to 14K and put a 14er under my belt? Why not say I did a 14,000 foot mountain? Why not? I'm about to tell you why not. Okay, we're going to get there. First and foremost, like, the drive in is a real tooth rattler. I mean, it is, guys, it's only, if I remember correctly, it's only like 8 or 9 miles of dirt road, but it's literally like a 48-minute drive. That's how slow you have to go. It was brutally rough, but absolutely beautiful. And once you clear the tree line, once you get above the tree line, it gets really otherworldly. Like it's like being on another planet. Well, you get up to, I would say, roughly around 12,000 feet, you have to stop. There's a gate, and it becomes a hike from there. So you can drive up to about 12,000 feet. And then you go up a couple hundred feet, and you're at the Dauntless Mine. The Dauntless Mine's really cool. There's a lot of infrastructure left to check out at the Dauntless Mine, considering that it's only a couple hundred foot of elevation gain and I don't know, maybe a half-mile hike from the gate that you can drive straight to. I think people leave well enough alone up there because once you get there, it's brutal, y'all. It is brutal. That day especially, we're late October, okay? We get up there, the wind is a sustained, like, I mean, think of Jim Cantore on the Weather Channel trying to walk across the screen in a hurricane somewhere, to illustrate how strong the wind is. That's what the wind was like up on top of this mountain. Once you're above the tree line, there are no brakes left. There's nothing left to break the wind, and it gets a little crazy. On top of that, the actual temperature was around, if I recall, 27 or 28 degrees, but add 30 or 40 mile an hour sustained winds. It was miserable. It was miserably cold. And guys, like, I've got the gear for this kind of stuff. Like, that's just kind of how I kick it in life. My bride, we're going to go over my system. One of these days, that's going to be an episode. My system for getting outside more, maximizing your time out there, keeping it nice, neat, and simple. I have everything I need rides in my vehicle. And, it's multi-purpose. Part of it's for search and rescue. It's always ready to go. But most of my search and rescue gear just so happens to double as my camping adventure gear. So it kind of works out, right? I've got multiple layers. I've got some of the best kinds of layers you can buy, like with research, not just like really expensive ones. Like, no, getting into it and finding out what's the best I can afford. I've got the stuff to do this. And it was still miserably cold, painfully, brutally. Hands went numb, couldn't hold on to like anything. Tripod, camera, nothing. Couldn't even hold things anymore because my hands just didn't exist. They were still there at the end of my arm. I could see them. I could see them moving, but I had like no sensation whatsoever of actually moving my fingers. It was kind of odd. But we did. We got up there. We checked it out. The Dauntless Mine's really cool. You can climb into, we ended up using the old mine shaft, one of the mine shafts going into the side of the mountain at the Dauntless Mine as like base camp so that I could go out for long enough to get video. And it was so loud. The wind was so loud, so brutal that I couldn't make a good YouTube video. I have a video of this too on our YouTube channel. Go check it out. What I ended up having to do is go into the alcove, into the mouth of the mine to talk on camera and say, this is what I'm about to show you and what I'm going to go do, and then go out there and do it. And I just had to do some magical video work and cut in some ambient tone because it blew out the speakers. You couldn't listen. It was that bad. And that cold. We would retreat into the mouth of that mine and sit in the sunlight because the sun was peeking in where you could warm up enough and then go spend 3 or 4 minutes hiking around and getting video of these old abandoned tracks and some of the old shafts in the mine. There's so much cool stuff there. Go to YouTube, youtube.com, Wayward Stories. Check it out. It's on there, the Dauntless Mine. And you can see, and it is, you drive right up basically to it. Okay, here's the other thing. Oxygen is really an issue, even at 12,000 feet. Unless you live and acclimate to that pretty consistently and regularly, it is very much a real issue. Guys, I've mentioned it a million times. I work for a major parcel company. I run most of my day. My legs would flip you out if you looked at them, and that's not like a flex. Like, that's like people have asked me, like, did you like have surgery on your calves? That was a literal question I got asked once. No, that's just my job. Like, I am in pretty darn good cardio shape. I was dying. I was dying up there. I got up to the Dauntless Mine. I'm just at 12.2, roughly 12.2. And we're talking walk 10 feet, breathe for 2 minutes until you feel like you can breathe again. Walk 30, 40 feet, breathe for 10 minutes, trying to catch your breath. Like, I saw these cans. They literally have canned oxygen in convenience stores up there in Buena Vista and areas around there. Canned oxygen. It's literally like an aerosol can with a face cup on it, and it's for huffing oxygen. So if you're up there hiking on these mountains, and I remember being in a store seeing that before I went up to the Sherman, Mount Sherman, and to the Dauntless Mine and all that, and thinking, that's ridiculous. Are you serious? Make sure you grab the canned oxygen and not the Raid. Like, it looks like a can of Raid, just different color. I wasn't laughing about that anymore when I was up at the Dauntless Mine. Like, y'all out there that are like real true mountain climbers and expeditioners who live in high altitude settings, who have an acclimation to it, y'all are probably bagging on me right now. But like, hey, let's be real. Lots of people are going to listen to this podcast from all over in all different situations and physical. Like, I'm in good cardio shape. That's the nature of my life. It's how I live. I'm in good shape, and I was dying up there. I was going to make the push for the Hilltop Mine because I really wanted. There's some really, I've seen pictures. There's some awesome, amazing photographic opportunities of that Hilltop Mine. The infrastructure that is left at the Hilltop Mine, some of it, it's dramatic. And it's at the top, well, Hilltop. It's at the top of the hill. Like, the views and the vistas and what's left of the infrastructure is just absolutely incredible from the pictures I've seen, and I wanted that. And I could see it. It was in my sight, further up the hill, 1,800, let's say 800 more feet above me. It was so brutally cold, and with that wind and the lack of oxygen and how much I was struggling with it, I was like, I'm going to try for a little while. According to the altimeter and my GPS, I made it to about 12.4, 12.4-ish. And I was like, no. This ain't going to happen. This ain't going to happen. Not going to make my 14er today, because if I can't even get to the Hilltop Mine at 13, there's no way I'm getting to the summit at 14. Not today. This is something else I left on the table, and why I'm going to go back again is because I believe in the heat of summer, the hottest part of summer, I believe it is doable for me. Even with the oxygen issues I had, I might just buy a can of that damn oxygen, like, to be honest. But I'm going back, and that's one reason, because that bothered me. I was right there. Could have got a 14er that day, and I couldn't do it. I mean, part of it was the weather circumstances, but part of it was I wasn't equipped for it that day. I wasn't ready. For anyone who thinks they might want to do that, like, I want to go over this real quick. I pulled this up just to go over this. It's 10 tips for climbing your first Colorado 14er. And I just want to throw these out there because, again, I've mentioned before, I'm a search and rescue guy. I want everyone to be safe when they're out there, because contrary to what you might think, search and rescue people anywhere, we don't want people to get injured or get lost. It's not what we want. We just like to take our natural desire to be in the outdoors and the skills we've already acquired and put them to use for good. We love search and rescue, but we don't want you to go missing or lost or injured just so we get to do it. So in the interest of your safety, 10 tips for getting your first 14er. 1, hydrate early and often. That's simple enough. Number 2, fuel up. Carbs, protein, healthy fats. Again, simple enough. Anyone who does marathons or anything of that nature is going to recognize that. Specific to a 14er in Colorado, start early. Hiking rule of thumb is to be off the summit by noon. In the summer, afternoon thunderstorms roll in fast and out of nowhere. Apparently, this is a thing. At 14,000 feet, you're the tallest thing around. Do not let your body become a human lightning rod. And then it goes into some tips about how to calculate your time out, your time in, all that. Wear layers, which I had, but still didn't help me on the day I was there in late October. Pack smart. Headlamp, rain jacket, hydration bladder. Not going to go into that. You can Google it. If you are an outdoorsman whatsoever, this is all stuff that should be in your backpack, your day pack. Every pack you have should have this list of stuff that I see before me. Break in your boots. Again, that's for any hike. Don't go out on a major hike in a pair of untested boots and end up with a blister. And yeah, do your research. Not all 14ers are created equal. They're in 5 categories, as a matter of fact. So as a matter of fact, Mount Sherman is considered the easiest 14er in the state of Colorado. So there's that. Plan for a weekday because they're so crowded on the weekends, and just keep going. And I would say take some canned oxygen, because if you pass the heck out up there, it's going to be miserable for you. It's going to be miserable. So anyway, there's that. There's some tips and tricks for trying to get your first 14er, which I failed to do, but I am going back. I got my eyes on you, Mount Sherman and Hilltop Mine. I'm coming for you. I will be back. But it was really cool up there. It was cool to experience. I'm glad that I went and did it, even though I came up short of my goal for that day, which was to make it all the way to the top of Mount Sherman to see the Hilltop Mine. Didn't make it that far. I did see the Dauntless Mine. I did make it above the tree line and get to experience that. And it was absolutely beautiful. It's crazy beautiful up there, guys. There's no two ways around it. It's its own version of beautiful, like so many things that we've talked about. Big Sur is its own version of beautiful. Yosemite's its own version of beautiful. Buffalo National, the Ponca Wilderness and the Buffalo National River, it's its own version of beautiful. Well, so is Colorado. And I think anyone that's ever been skiing, even in Colorado, knows that. But yeah, you get up above that tree line. It's so arid. It's so scraggly. Whatever is growing is such scrub. I don't know. There's a desolate beauty to it. And you are alive. You know full well you're alive. And you know how close you might be to not being alive. But you know full well you're alive because you feel it. See, to me, that's one of the things I've harped on in other episodes is you really, really experience nature and its brutality, its harshness, what it can do to you, because you feel it through your whole body. The wind, the cold, the lack of oxygen. It's not just looking at pretty pictures, man. It's being a part of it for just a small little chunk of time. And that's, to me, that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. What is up, all of you wayward souls? I want to tell you guys about our newest sponsor, Vendetti Optics, a brand based right here in the good old US of A, Portland, Oregon, to be exact. And I bought my first pair of Vendetti sunglasses about 1.5 years ago and fell in love with them, so much so that I got online and ordered a couple of more pair. And when I did, there was a small shipping snafu, an order fulfillment snafu, and I got on the phone, gave him a call, and guess what? I get a call back from who? One of the big men themselves, right there in Portland, from the top of the chain. Have a great conversation, and we end up starting this great relationship we have. They more than made right the little snafu that occurred, and I am now a huge proponent of them because I can tell you from personal experience they are good people, and they're trying to compete with the big boys out there, coming in at a price point of about $40, but using the exact same frame material, TR90, and the same polarization process as the big guys. As it turns out, something I think we are already probably knew in our hearts, when you buy big name sunglasses, you're buying a big name, not necessarily any more quality than you can get somewhere else, like at Vendetti Optics. They have 29 different styles. They have multiple polarization options for whatever climate you happen to live in. And they back it up with this lifetime guarantee that if your dog eats your sunglasses, it doesn't matter how you break them, send it back in with a check to cover shipping and handling, and you're golden. You got a new pair on the way. These guys are truly trying to do it right, and they have this philosophy that a really good pair of sunglasses should not cost you so much that you are afraid to wear them. And I think all of us outdoorsmen can relate to that. So if you guys, like me, are very practical and like to get more bang for your buck and wear some great looking sunglasses, check out VendettiOptics.com. That's BENDETTI optics.com, or you can go over to Instagram /VendettiOptics. And that I highly suggest, whether you buy a pair or not, just to check out the cutest pupper you'll ever see modeling sunglasses. Once again, that's VendettiOptics.com, and make sure and let them know Wayward Stories sent you. So anyway, we wrapped up. We got our way back down to the old X, and I'd never been so happy to see the X in my life. It was a windbreak for one thing, had a heater for another, and you want to talk about burn calories. On that short little expedition, the 2 to 3 hours we spent kicking it around the Dauntless mine, exploring, taking pictures, making a video, I got back to the ride and I was starving. I mean, it like pit of your stomach starving. Like the calories you burn as your body tries to keep you warm. Yeah, make sure you have food. But there were calories in that car. There was a heater in that car and there was a windbreak. Oh, God, it was wonderful. But we got back down. And the next thing we did on that day, and this is again, like I said, pick a thing, go do it, and then see what else you find along the way. And something we found on that day was the Clear Creek Mining District. That is, it's not halfway, but it's somewhere between Buena Vista and Leadville, Colorado. Clear Creek Mining District, just a little dirt road that you can just drive your way out, and it's got 4 abandoned towns and some mining refuse left over out there. There are people that still live in the area. There are a lot of old buildings. There are a lot of historical markers and things of that nature. And that's a cool little, not even a day trip. It's not even really a half day trip. That might be a nice afternoon. Go down through the Clear Creek Mining District. That's something else that's an area. And that's what we did that day. And what else did we do that day? Oh, yeah. Went on down to the Arkansas River. Got back to Buena Vista. Went down to the Arkansas River. We did some adventuring. There's the Colorado Midland Railroad grade on the other side from Buena Vista of the Colorado River that is now a road and a hike/bike trail that a lot of people were on. You drive through 4 short tunnels that had to be cut out in order for that railroad to be built on that grade back in the 1800s. And that is a cool, beautiful little drive along the rim of the Arkansas River at that point. Got to check that out. But we got out, I took my fishing rod, I bought my day fishing license, and I trout fished for a while. Just to say I did, because I wanted to. Fish in the Arkansas River at its headwaters, knee deep in the coldest water that is unfrozen you've ever stepped into. And I didn't catch a single fish that day, but you know what? That's all right, because I was there living it and experiencing it, feeling it on my legs. Like, it's just so beautiful, guys. Like, for me personally, it's a spiritual thing. There's a spirituality to standing there, physically experiencing the environment and taking it all in with my eyeballs, like seeing such impressive natural beauty all around you. It's a really amazing thing. It's a really amazing thing. For me, it's a spiritual thing. And it is for a lot of people, I've come to understand in life. But, even for the people that it's not spiritual, it's still special. And that was how that day got wrapped up. Went back around dark. Actually found a place to eat some pretty darn good Mexican food there in Buena Vista. And went back to the B&B, Riverside Hotel, and kicked it in the hot tub for a couple hours, staring up at the vast cosmos, because it is, Buena Vista is not a dark sky area, but still there's very little light pollution, especially out on that end of town where we were, and just staring up at the stars as far as you can see in a hot tub, your head laid back on the edge of the hot tub, your face frigid in the late October Colorado air. That was a really nice way to wrap that day up. That was a nice day. The next day, we got into Leadville in a really, really, really cool place. Leadville, Colorado is like maybe 45 minutes to an hour up the road from Buena Vista. Leadville came into existence same time as Buena Vista with the gold rush of 1859. It boomed big time. They found a lot of gold in California Gulch. And then, the gold started to pan out, and somebody figured out, this is the process of technology coming along. There was this, black sand sludge stuff that they had been throwing away through all this gold mining process, just setting it aside in tailings piles, and somebody figured out it had a bunch of effing silver in it, and it was on. And then it was the silver boom, and it was big time. So much money, and Leadville became a huge, huge place in its heyday. It had all these mines going on. They've got the Basically, it's the Leadville Mining District. It's this huge area that encompasses like California Gulch and several things up in that area. Leadville is literally at the headwaters of the Arkansas River. I tried to go to the actual origin point of the Arkansas River. I mean, growing up in eastern Oklahoma and western Arkansas, the Arkansas River is a major thing in your life to some degree at some point. It's kind of like the Mississippi River to Samuel Clemens and Mark Twain and Huck Finn and Tom Sawyer and all that. Like, not quite as much, but it's still like a central figure to your world. It's a big arse river in this area. And here I am at its literal origin point, its headwaters. And the best I could discern was it's at the confluence of two different creeks. Those two different creeks, which I'm at a loss right now for the name of those two creeks. But at that confluence, right there at the edge of Leadville, when they become one creek, that becomes the Arkansas River. And that was kind of cool. Didn't really get to see it. It looked like it was on private property, the actual origin point, but we could see where it was. And by map, I believe that was the actual origin point. I probably could have followed one of those creeks all the way up into the mountains. And we considered that actually, but that would have taken, I believe, renting one of those Jeeps, OHVs. That got a little crazy up in there. But Leadville itself, super cool place. It was a gold boom that turned into a silver boom. Gosh, what was I reading last night? I believe Ulysses S. Grant rode the first train that arrived in Leadville. Doc Holliday kicked it in Leadville. Actually, the last, Doc Holliday, you guys, anyone's ever watched Tombstone, Val Kilmer, your Huckleberry. Doc himself, the last man he was known to have shot, at least on historical record, was in Leadville, Colorado. So, lots of cool little things. Leadville is a neat, really cool, quaint, kitsch little town. Like, we talked at length to the lady at the visitor center, and it was kind of interesting. She had a similar take on it too, like we talked about in the Big Sur episode. It's like, no, yeah, I mean, this is our livelihood. We're happy about all these people, but like, it gets old. So again, reinforcing the be good denizens of the community when you're out there traveling. Be good people. But it's really neat. Got a lot of history. The mining museum is there. There's so many things going on there. But what I want to talk about specifically about Leadville is the Route of the Silver Kings. The Route of the Silver Kings is a driving tour they have put together, a self-guided driving tour that they've kind of put together. You got to go get a map down at the visitor center for this. And it goes through 20 square miles and 14 specific named stops in the Leadville Mining District. And guys, like, here's the thing. Like, this is why it's so fun. Because it's not like a paved road all the way through. It's not like this, little cute little driving tour. Like, you should have a 4-wheel drive to do this. They don't really tell you that. It's not really like clearly warned, but you should. Okay, I'm just going to tell you about the trip. Like, when you go up into this area, you get this map, and it's not like USGS map. This is like a drawn out cartoon animated type of map. It's awesome. It is really cool. Like, it's worth framing and putting on your wall and like places you've been. Like, it is a really neat little map, but it's not to scale. It doesn't have like mileages. It's like, there's nothing really there so that you can tell I've gone this far and this is probably the actual location that I'm at. Like, it's not real well signed and marked. And of course, people go up in their OHVs and do stuff they're not supposed to and go off trail. And those trails start to look like just as good as the road you're driving on. And suddenly you're like, where the hell am I? And can I get out of this unscathed? Right? That happened a couple of times, but oh my God, it was so cool, guys. Like, there's so much. It's like, it's so inaccessible in its own way. And it would be so hard. And to what end? Like, what's the value of the things that are left there? And they're in that capacity really well preserved. You go in and you drive up and there's like entire tipples. There's entire like I will butcher every proper terminology and get roasted, which has already happened on YouTube. The Route of the Silver Kings, also a video I have on YouTube. Go check it out. People come into the comments like, that is not the Eliza mine. That is the blah, 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 blah. Like, guys, I was working with a crudely drawn map. There was no specifics, no signs, no anything. Cut us outsiders just a little bit of slack. Like, anyway around it. 4-wheel drive territory for a lot of this. We got in, drove up to a couple of places and saw it just, there's one little valley. I couldn't find my map, or I would have it out in front of me right now to talk to you guys about it. But this map, we were in this one area, and I do believe, the Baby Doe mine, that was one of the ones that we were at in that whole little valley. It's everywhere. There are so many buildings, abandoned buildings, cabins, shacks, and again, mines themselves, shafts, processing centers, ore processing centers, railroad tracks. So much cool stuff up in there. You guys, you have to go do this. Take your 4-wheel drive. My ex did just fine for most of it. We did try to follow one trail up to what I believe was Mosquito Pass. And by all accounts, from what I could see, I was where I should be. And it was what it said it was. And there was no way. There was no way I was taking my ex down there, even with brand new off-road tires, even with brand new suspension. I literally did all this work before I went to Colorado just because it needed it, and it just worked out good. I don't have that kind of money to throw around all the time just for giggles, but it was work that had to be done. It got done, and then I went to Colorado, and it kind of worked out great, and I was like freaking terrified up there in some places. Like, this ain't gonna happen. I'm about to tear my ride to pieces. So you need to be aware of that if you go. There was one place where we hit there should have just been like two roads. You either go this way and it's back to where you came from, or you go this way and you're heading back out to another section that you need to go check out, that we're trying to go check out. And this car comes up behind us, and it's like a little 2-wheel drive Buick, like crossover SUV. Like, it doesn't have ground clearance to save its life. It's definitely not 4-wheel or all-wheel drive. I mean, I'm scoping this thing out, and it's these two really, one of them is a more refined, aged woman, and one of them is just like honestly elderly. She was just old. And it was such a cool story because I stopped and asked him, I said, hey, like, do you guys know what's going on here? And B, can I help you? Because, like, I'm looking at her vehicle going, you have no business here, and you definitely don't need to go the way that I just turned around, because I'm not taking this there. You're definitely not taking that there. You know, kind of let me flag them down and try to be a good neighbor and help them out. And B, C, can I help you? So, are you all good? And it was kind of a cool story. The younger of the two was taking the older of the two. She had grown up in that mining district in one of those cabins, and she was like literally taking her kind of her farewell to her swan song. She wanted to come back and see it before she got too old and passed away. So that was actually really kind of cool. But then we turn around and they turn around too, and we go back, and there's like this intersection where it's really only supposed to go 2 ways, but it goes like 5 ways. Again, probably because of OHVers making their own trails, and those trails over time becoming very much, they look just as good as the road that you're supposed to be on, just being honest. And they came up behind us, and I saw them behind us, and I looked down at the map in my lap for, I swear to you, it could not have been more than a few seconds. Like, I'm, gonna misremember stuff. It's been 8-9 months ago I took this trip, right? But I knew at the time, like, my travel buddy and I, she and I were talking like we had like mental issues over this. It's like she saw them come up behind us. I saw them come up behind us, but they had room to go in any of the directions we had before us. And I'm looking down at the map, and I look back up, and they're just gone. I mean, like gone. Our windows were down. I heard no gravel crackling. I heard them pull up behind us. Didn't hear them leave. Okay. And I was like, where did they go? And she looked back, and she's like, what do you mean? They were right there. And I was like, they're not now. Do you see them? No, they're not. And we're like, where the heck did they go? They didn't go past us on our left or right. So that ruled out those 2 roads. I don't believe they backed up, because I heard them pull up behind us. Didn't hear them back away from us. There was only one road they could have taken, which is what we ultimately ended up taking within 20 or 30 seconds of where the hell did they go? And we start down that road and it's like a mile long straight, like downhill. There's nowhere they could have gone, but they were gone. And I'm like, yeah, y'all, I know there's a rational explanation for where they went. But for the life of me, I cannot come up with it. And it's more fun for me to think that they were abducted by aliens, or they were from the ethers, or this was like something replaying itself that had happened 10 years before. I don't know. Like, just, pick your poison. What do you want it to be? It's fun to speculate, unless they like rolled off the side of the hill or something, which, God, I didn't even think about that. That's possible. Like, that's for real possible. Oh, shit. Yeah. Because the next part of our leg of our trip, we went down that road that we didn't see them down anymore. And that was really the only place they really possibly could have went. And the next ride up, when you turn and you start back up, it's like way down to your right. Like, to the point that my travel buddy, she was having a tough time with it, because she was having to look out her window straight down a long damn ways, a long ways down. The only way I dealt with it was, like, you get older, right? I'm old now, right? I'm like 40 or something. And I think, yeah, I'm 40. And you get older and you live life, and, like, again, search and rescue, you do different things in life, and you find yourself in situations and you learn how to cope with stuff, like, you know how to make good decisions. Like, you just get better under pressure. And for me, it was, we're already here now. There is no backing down this road that we just came up, because we will go off the side of this mountain. If I have to back, and y'all, I'm a professional backer-upper. I tell people that all the time. I do two things with my job. One, I professionally disappoint people on a daily basis. And number two, I am a professional backer-upper. It's what I do all day long. But no. No, it was too tight. There was no tolerance for error here. There was zero tolerance for error. I mean, we're talking like 6 inches too far to your right, to the passenger side, and the wheel's off and you're gone. It's over with, period. To the right, I mean, it's just like Big Bluff kind of was. Rock wall, or more dirt, really, but you have like a sheer wall to your left. Can't go that way. To your right, it's your doom. Existential crisis. So in the moment, in the situation, you're like, well, there is no backing up. There is no leaving this vehicle here. I have to have it. The only way out is to go. So what do? You focus on the left side of the road, where it's not a sheer drop to death. And you keep your tires as far as you can to that side and leave it in the hands of the gods, or the fates, or the nothings, whatever you believe. Choose your illusion. Like, that's how you got out of there. And that tripped me out, man. Like, it was close. It was a tight squeeze. There are things like that on this route of the Silver Kings that you need to keep in account. And you're going to find yourself there without knowing that you found yourself there. Because, again, the map and the roads are not marked that well. They're like more for like generally getting you where you're going in the proper direction, right? Like, it's more of a general idea. It's just more of a suggestion of what you can do on the route of the Silver Kings. And you can find yourself in some funky situations. And now that I think about it, looking back, good grief, what if those people went off the side of that hill and that's why they just disappeared? That'll keep me awake tonight. Anyway, moving on, Route of the Silver Kings. It's super awesome. It's something that I suggest. Like, honestly, I think this whole trip in general, anyone should, if you're into history, if you're into natural beauty, God, we didn't even touch on Browns Canyon National Monument. It's just south of Buena Vista. It is, I think it was during the Obama administration, it gained national monument status. So it is fully protected. You can trout fish up in there. There are, of course, at the right time of year, whitewater rafting on the Arkansas River. You guys ever seen a video? There's a video, if you Google this, if you get on YouTube and type into the search bar, suck hole, the suck hole. on the Arkansas River that's going to be from this general area. The suck hole is like this standing wave in the Arkansas River at prime whitewater that the first time I saw a video of it, you're looking at it going, oh yeah, wow, that's really pretty. Look at that, man. That water's moving, because you can't get an idea of the magnitude of the size of the wave because of the way cameras reflect perspective to the viewer, until this little dot comes into the picture and you're like, crap, that is a raft with like 16 people on it. And then it hits the suck hole and 16 people are airborne. And I mean really airborne, like probably 15 or 20 feet in the air, bodies and paddles going everywhere. So whitewater rafting, Arkansas River, is also something that's going down in this area. Browns Canyon National Monument. There's fishing, there's OHVing, there's a bunch of stuff going on there. We didn't touch on that because we didn't really do that, but it's there to be done. Something you need to know. This whole area, it was a prime area for my kind of adventures, which is this. There's a couple of main points that my whole trip will be complete if I can go explore an old abandoned gold rush town. Everything else is icing on the cake. Let's roll the dice. Let's set a couple of time frames. Let's have a general idea. I'm going to get there on this day at roughly this time, and I'm going to leave on this day at roughly this time. And everything in between is up to the way the wind blows. And that, to me, is the epitome. And it's just, again, me in my opinion, but to me, that is the epitome of a good adventure in the modern world. We can't go do like the Lewis and Clark stuff. You want to go climb Everest, like, good God, that's gotten to be such a touchy thing in and of itself. But by all means, go be that dude or that woman. Like, I'll respect you for it. But guess what? That's not on my list of things to do. Like, that is a ginormous feat of physical strength and physical endurance, and something that I respect as a feat of physical, endurance. But like, that's not like, I want to adventure. I want to explore things I've never seen. I want to find things that other people haven't seen in forever, or very few people ever find. This area, that's my kind of trip, man. That's what this turned out to be, was my kind of trip. Got to check out St. Elmo, got to try a 14er and fell enough to wet my taste buds and give me a taste of it, and make me want to go back. And I am going back. 10 Cup Pass, I'm going back for that. There's a lot of things, and I'm making a return trip. But that's the trip. That's the trip as it was, and that's exactly how I want my trips to be. And yeah, just wanted to share it with you guys tonight. I hope that you enjoyed the story of it. When I went home, go back through when you're heading back home. Something to keep in mind is you can check out the high road to Taos, which is 56 miles through the Sangre de Cristo Mountains from Taos to Santa Fe, and it is it's for real. Like, if it didn't like closed because of weather, because of snow or something, it's for real. Like, you're dropping thousands of feet over just a few miles in certain places. Like, your ears are popping every 5 minutes and trying to clear and adjust for the altitude change. But it's beautiful. And it's not like dangerous. It is steep. You'll smoke your brakes, man. Like, just go in, be prepared. You're going to ride your brakes a lot. Learn to use your low gears. But it's wide open with shoulders and guardrails. It's not unsafe. It's just a very steep descent or a very steep ascent, depending on which way you're traveling, south to north or north to south. But it's absolutely gorgeous. Did that. Rio Grande Gorge Bridge is right there in that area. Like, and that was just a detour for us. Like, we could have gone a more direct way on the way home, but this added maybe a couple of hours to the entire trip home. But not without good reason. The Rio Grande Gorge Bridge is God, walk out on that bridge and look down, y'all. Like, it's insane. It is really cool. Like, you need to check that out. And the high road to Taos, it's known, very well known in the area. And as I did some research just to kind of get an idea, it's pretty dang well known nationally in a lot of circles and traveling circles. It's something to be done, guys. Like, you can fit something into every leg of your trip. If you go out prepared and like the way I do my system, pick my area and one or two major things I want to happen while I'm in that area, pick my time frames and just roll. And everything else is just icing on the cake. Everything I told you tonight, to illustrate that point and hammer it home, everything I told you tonight was stuff that popped up on the trip itself and was unexpected. The only two things were Buena Vista, Colorado, and go check out St. Elmo's. That was the two main things. I'm going to stay in Buena Vista and I want to check out St. Elmo, Colorado. That was the only thing I had actually planned. And fishing some on the Arkansas River. The only two things I had planned for the whole trip. Everything else we did. Going up and trying to do Mount Sherman, seeing the Dauntless Mine, the Hilltop Mine, Leadville, the Route of the Silver Kings, the Clear Creek Mining District, all of that, Browns Canyon National Monument, all of that was after the fact. It was an afterthought. None of that was expected. That was all a part of the adventure, and that's how I like to adventure. And I just wanted to share that with you guys tonight. Another adventure story from a wayward soul, which is me. But I need your adventure stories so we can start telling something that's probably a little less boring than my stories. I'm sure you guys are more interesting and more exciting than I am. In order to share those stories with me, I need you to write me. And the best way to do that is at mywaywardstory@gmail.com. Or you can go over to the website, which is also always a good option because you can contact me via the contact form there at waywardstories.com. And you can check out our photo galleries. You can check out my YouTube channel, my Instagram page. You can also get episodes of the podcast there now and the links to the podcast episodes, my blog page, a lot going on over there. So go check that out. If you want to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/wayward stories. If you do that, everything that I have donated to help in like the truest form of crowdfunding for independent artists, 20% of that is always going to go to a charity every single month. If you want to hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, any of that, best way to do it, again, waywardstories.com. And I think that's pretty much going to wrap us up. Please rate, please subscribe, and please tell people, tell your friends. If you're enjoying the show, pass it along to your hiking group, to your cycling group, to your climbing group, anyone that likes to listen to podcasts, man, tell them all about it. That will help me out more than anything. And those ratings, reviewing, and subscribing, that's how you get boosted up in the rankings in Apple, Stitcher. It's out everywhere now, guys. We're on Stitcher, Apple, iHeartRadio. We're on pretty much every single platform that you can get a podcast at now. So tell your friends, rate, review, and subscribe. You'd be doing us a big solid. You would be really helping me out, and I would appreciate that. But yeah, that's going to wrap us up for this week. We're going to come back next week with another episode, another story of mine. Unless you guys start hitting me up pretty soon, it's going to take a while to catch on. I get it. It's got to find its way into the marketplace. But until then, I'm going to keep telling you stories of my own. And until then, I hope that you guys will have a good week. Please, by all means, be good to each other. And beyond that, go out there and find something good that you can do for someone else and make the world a little bit of a better place.
We here at Studio 119 would like to remind all of you out there listening, wherever you might be, that though the hill might be steep and the trail be rocky, the mountaintop awaits. Carry on.